Hi there! I'm here to talk about the new real estate closing disclosure. Knowing what this new disclosure is all about will help you when closing real estate signings. The closing disclosure was created to make a simplified way for consumers to understand all of the cost of the transaction on a real estate loan. It makes it easier to locate information such as interest rates, monthly payments, and costs to close the loan. The closing disclosure must be provided to the consumer at least 3 days prior to closing. The closing disclosure will be used for most closed-ended consumer mortgages. Home equity lines of credit, reverse mortgages, or mortgages by a dwelling not attached to real property will continue to use current disclosure form. So let's jump in and see what the closing disclosure looks like. On the first page, we start at the top with the closing, transaction, and loan information. Under the closing information, the following is disclosed. The date issued is the date the closing disclosure is delivered to the consumer. The closing date, the disbursement date, the name of the settlement agent, the file number, the property address, the sales price. Next is the transaction information, which will disclose the name of the borrower, the name of the seller, and the name of the lender. An address will be listed for each party. An additional page may be used and placed at the end of the closing disclosure if needed. Then there is the loan information. Here, the following information is disclosed: the term of the loan, the purpose of the loan, the product type, the type of loan, the creditor's loan ID number, and the mortgage insurance case number. If we move down, you have the loan terms. Here, you will find the amount of the loan, the interest rate, the amount showing the monthly principal and interest, if there are any prepayment penalties, and if there is a balloon payment. Moving on, you have the estimated payments, disclosing the total monthly payment, including the principal and interest, mortgage insurance, and estimated escrow. Directly below is the estimated taxes, insurance, and assessments, and if it's going to be an escrow. Last, on page 1, is the cost at closing. Closing costs will disclose the total amount, including total loan costs, total other costs, and lender credits, which is itemized on page 2 of the closing disclosure. Cash to close is the estimated amount of cash the borrower will pay or receive at closing. This amount is broken down in the Calculating Cash to Close table on page 3 of the closing disclosure. Page 2 discloses the closing cost details. The first section covers the loan costs. This section goes over the origination charges, services borrower did not shop for, and services borrower did shop for. Each line will indicate whether it is paid for by the borrower, seller, or paid by other. It will also list whether if said amount was paid before the closing or to be paid for at closing. The next section discloses other costs, starting off with the taxes and other government fees. Then you have the prepaids, which are paid by the borrower in advance to the first scheduled payment of the loan, such as the homeowner's insurance premium, mortgage insurance premium, prepaid interest, property taxes, and a maximum of 3 additional items. Each item under prepaids must include the applicable time period covered by the amount to be paid by the borrower and the total amount to be paid. The same goes for the section below for initial escrow payment at closing. Next, you have the other costs. These items reflect the cost incurred by the borrower or seller that were not required to be disclosed on the loan estimate. These costs can include real estate brokerage fees, HOA fees, home warranties, inspection fees, and any other fees paid at closing. At the bottom of this page will be the totals to be paid either by the borrower, seller, or other, and whether it is a cost to be paid at or before closing. Moving on to page 3, we start with the Calculating Cash to Close table. This table will have 9 items listed. The table will also have 3 columns for each item showing the loan estimate, the final amount, and an answer to did this change. At the bottom of this table will be Cash to Close, which will show the total amount of all the closing costs. Below this table is the Summaries of Transactions, disclosing the amounts associated with the real estate transaction between the borrower and seller, together with closing costs. This section will finish with the amounts due from or to the borrower and seller at closing as applicable. On page 4, we have the loan disclosures. Here we'll cover information on the assumption of the loan, demand feature, late payments, negative amortization, partial payments, security interest, and escrow accounts. To the right will be further information regarding the cost to the escrow account, including escrowed property costs for year 1, non-escrowed costs such as HOA fees, the initial escrow payment, and the monthly escrow payment. If there is not an escrow account involved, then these costs will be in the table below. Last is page 5 of the closing disclosure. First part is the loan calculations table to the top right. Here disclosed is the total amount of payments over the course of the loan, the finance charge, amount financed, the APR, and the total interest percentage. Next is the other disclosure section, giving information relating to the appraisal, contract details, the liability after foreclosure, refinancing, and tax deductions. Below is the contact information. Here you will find the contact information for the lender, brokers, and settlement agents. The final part of the closing disclosure is confirm receipt signature, including a statement that signifies receipt of the closing disclosure. Now you should have a good general knowledge of the new closing disclosure form and should be able to explain its contents at closing. We encourage you to check out the links below for further or updated information. Keep in mind, as a notary signing agent, we cannot give advice or explain how they got to certain figures. We can show them where to find the information on the document and have them call their loan officer, broker, or settlement agent to explain or answer any questions regarding the terms or fees to their loan.